Okay, so we're recording from now on. Dan, we're sitting on a park bench. People are walking past us on the way back from work, on the way back from school. You caught my eye because you had a book on your lap with handwriting in it, as if you were going to journal or something, or write down some thoughts. What were you just engaged in doing?
I was just writing poetry. I have like
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Great.
I have a project I'm currently working on that is just all about like longing, just like exploring the idea of longing. And as I'd like slowly been writing it, I kind of realized the things I was focusing on were like two main kinds of longing. There's like, I guess what's more traditionally associated with longing is like the idea of like a singular person, like, you know, romantic love or like missing someone who's dead or something like that. And then there's like also a kind of more abstract longing of like a world that's like yet to come, like be it like some kind of afterlife, or even just sometimes certain ways you kind of wished the world worked out, and it's kind of a longing for the way the things are not, but you wish they could have been, even though
Kind of like utopia. It's kind of like the perfect world that we can't have, but is in our imagination. Is it kind of a reaching for the impossible?
It's, yeah, but I think at least when I've been writing it, it's more in the really, in like the very common day sort of way, in the sense of like, there's like a utopic version of I wish the world was better, but there's also like, oh, I wish I could have known that one person better, but something just didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a longing for I wish that could happen, but I think I'm also struck by the sense of like, that's something that exists in imagination, but that's not like a real thing.
Is longing regret? I know they're two different words meaning two different things, but just thinking about longing, when you're longing for something, are you regretting?
I think a regret is a
in
feeling,
the personal way.
Yeah, I think it's a feeling that comes alongside it if it's a feeling of I didn't do this right. But I think more so the actual longing is for something that's just not here in general, and it's not something that has become a part of reality that maybe seems like it was a possibility at some point.
Do you think it's something that we all do, just idly in our everyday thoughts? Do you think longing is actually quite a common thread in our thoughts? Even looking at someone, you know that way that you could look at someone in the distance and you kind of fall in love with what they represent or something. You're like, oh, imagine if I had their life, or imagine if I could have a life that looked as good as their life is. Do you reckon that is longing, or is that just foolish, idle thoughts? Because longing is kind of it's a bit more thoughtful.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a poet, you spent a long time thinking about this. I shouldn't try and make things up on the spot. What tell me what you've come to understand about longing from the point that you started to now.
I think longing like mainly manifests itself in thoughts, and like you're kind of manifesting a certain picture or a series of events. But I think it's kind of like, it's like a spiritual condition. I think it emerges from something that's quite deep, and it's kind of all the various like emotions you're feeling, or something that's been developing in your subconscious for quite a while, is suddenly welling up in your like kind of mental fixations on these things. And then I think that can be caught up with other feelings as well. Like if it's like you see someone who's living a better life, and if you start fixating on that, it's like there's an element in which that is longing, but I think in that sense it's also getting caught up with like envy or jealousy.
Yes.
And I think that's like a separate thing.
I mean, a bit like regret, there's other words that connect to it, which are part of longing. Love is part of longing. I mean, we've all known, or hopefully we've all known the huge strength it can get of longing for someone that you've lost or are no longer with. There's that, or even just a family member, let's say someone who's died, and you wish you could be with them. That kind of longing is very powerful. That personal longing, which is from pure love, in a way.
Yeah.
Why did you start? Why did you just decide that this was the word to base it on? Was it a random choice, or was there a sort of thought pattern behind it? It's like, this is a very rich trench to dig.
Yeah. I think I chose longing just because it was like in a very simple way. It was just kind of it was kind of the instinctive word that made sense for what I was doing. I kind of think of, when people ask about my creative process, I call it like fermenting. Like the idea is like,
That sounds nice.
fermenting. Yeah.
It's good. It just sounds like something great comes out of it.
Yeah, absolutely, something great. No, fermented stuff is good for you, good for your gut. It's just like, I'll start noticing that's like something is drawing my attention a lot whenever I'm just like thinking, and then the fermenting is like, before I write anything, it's like continually mulling that over, letting it always sit in the background of my mind, and choosing periods for it to focus more. And then when it comes to writing, something just emerges because it's been kind of fermenting underneath the whole time.
So it's kind of like an exciting feeling to feel something like that going on, even if you can't put words to it. If you can't quite get your hand on it, you're just like, you sit with it for a while. So sitting with it is important.
Yeah, like it takes a long time. I think I've noticed with writing, if I ever just try to sit down and write from scratch, the most like generic, banal shit comes out. But
you do it anyway.
No, I change the process. So that's if I do it like without anything before, if I just try to write for the sake of writing. But it's like if I have research, if I've been fermenting, if I've been thinking, suddenly like interesting things emerge. So I think it's kind of like a necessary part of the process.
That must be a really exciting time. I love that idea. I mean, do you do that writing process of, I must write 1,000 words a day, whether I feel like it or not, just to keep the muscles going in terms of thinking, or do you just wait until the muse strikes?
I think I do it more of like an environment. I'm trying to like create a habitat and an ecosystem where like ideas kind of thrive and develop kind of naturally. It's like, I don't know, it's more like gardening. I think of a combination maybe of gardening in terms of like creating a habitat, but then also like the David Lynch idea of like catching an idea, like fishing and like in your subconsciousness, and it's like.
Is David Lynch?
He's a director.
The film guy.
Yeah, the film guy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, got you.
But he's got like cool ideas about how to catch creative ideas, and I think I focus on that as well, on like creating an environment where things can emerge, and then once things emerge, you like kind of catch them as soon as possible. And I don't keep to like a strict write this many words a day, but I try to keep myself accountable with at least continually creating the environment where I can be having interesting ideas and can be like writing them down.
And is the start of the process sometimes the best bit of the process? Like when you've finished it and created something out of what has been fermenting, and you've got the final version in front of you, are you sometimes, I mean, going back to the thing of longing, are you sometimes longing for the excitement of the initial fermentation process when it was unformed? And when it's formed and kind of put down in words, does that in some way kind of close it down a bit?
Not close it down, it's kind of like there's like the excitement of like, oh cool, I have a new thing. Like whenever you find something new, there's something exciting about that in general. But then the whole like process in general is just kind of piecing things together, figuring out the world, figuring out myself, and it's kind of just sort of caught up in how I come to understand the world and how I kind of move through it. And then once it's like done in sense of like being published, like that's still only like, that's not necessarily the end of that. That's still something I'll think about for a while. Now it's out in the world and people can experience it. I think I'm really also big on the idea of thoughts and creativity and work is like for the sake of like community. I think creativity is not really an individualistic thing. I think we really thrive when it's within a community. I think we become more creative through understanding that other people think about things in a very different way and approach things in a very different way.
The publishing thing that happens, that speaks of success. That speaks of the fact that you can get it out there. It's not just in the book. When you publish, what happens to your work? Does it become other people's, or does it remain yours?
I use publish in a pretty loose way. I mainly publish through like Substack, and I put it on like on my Instagram, so it's like friends will know about it. One of my goals this year is to try. I'm gonna start reaching out to, like poetry journals and stuff like that, and try to also get it into other areas. But for now, it's just sort of something that will more or less become a part of the world of people who are around me, and then it's a new thing for us to kind of like discuss and to get other ideas from. So it's like I have my own little like habitat and environment of how my ideas form, but then ultimately the point is to bring that into a larger habitat where it can develop even more and contribute to the development of others.
What about public performance? Do you perform your poetry? Do you do spoken word? Do you read it aloud, even to friends? Is it written to be read aloud, or is it written to be read, or both?
I guess both. I probably like read it, and people read it more. I've never really performed it. I've just had like points where sometimes like a friend asked me to like sit down and read it to them. That's happened a few times.
Is your hand shaking? Is your voice shaking when you do that, or does it feel quite comfortable to do that? I just say that because I once remember years ago I was at Glastonbury Festival. I went into one of the random tents you find. There was a poet in there. Nobody else was in there. He was reading out his poetry. His voice was shaking with emotion. He was so nervous, and nobody was listening to it. It's always stayed in my mind, an empty tent and a nervous poet. It was kind of poetry in itself, but it was also very poignant. That it was such a huge effort for him to get it out in a public space. Do you find that, or do you find it quite easy?
I find it fairly easy. It's because I've more or less done some degree of like little performance-y things in front of people before, in like music and like acting and like very small forms like school and events and stuff. So it's like something I'm kind of used to now. And I think I've been getting in my head for a while the idea that when you do perform, even though I think we, at least Western people, have like a weird kind of instinct that we kind of become very hyper like aware and like self-regulating, and the idea that like suddenly we're spectating ourselves and we're spectating others spectating us, and it becomes like a kind of feedback loop for anxiety. But I'm sort of been getting into my head the idea that it's like, it's not like in a performance space, it's not centered on me, but it's centered on whatever I'm like a conduit of, whatever I'm like channeling. It's like the audience and the performer are kind of like equal parts of the experience overall, and there's something powerful that's like created between them, and there's also a context overall, whether it's like entertainment or something philosophical or spiritual that is kind of contextualizing the whole experience as well. So I try to think again more in the sense of like an ecosystem, and less I am the central point and everyone was watching me and holy shit.
Right. And you I suppose what you're doing is you're trying to channel people to the words, not to you. So even if you're speaking it aloud or putting it on Instagram, it's kind of like, here are the words for you to take away and consider.
Yeah. And especially when like something like poetry, I mean, it happens with every artistic form, poetry, where it's like meant to be very like kind of concentrated emotions and feelings into words. It's like someone who reads it is never going to be thinking the same thing that I thought when I wrote. And it's not as if you're like losing the word and it's no longer yours, but it's, I don't know, it's kind of an honor to be able to have other people invite the words you've strung together into their own lives and their ways of seeing the world, and then create something new out of it and a new way of seeing it is actually, I think, very special.
When we started this conversation, you said, I'm a poet. It's something you're happy to sort of put out there. Is that your identity, poet? Or do you have different identities also?
Yeah, I have different identities. I think everyone has a kind of multiplicity of identities and different like selves they take on, or different ways of expressing. But just writing for a long time has been a big part of how I figure out the world, and it became like I am also like a creative in general, but then writing sort of just became one of the main ways that I kind of focused it, and also is just one of the better ways, the one of the ways that I'm just better at focusing it into a way that is actually creatively interesting. Yeah.
The process you go through with poetry, where does it? How many crossings out do you have on that book that you've got, that you had open when I came along? How much reworking, how much kind of trying to craft it happens, and how much does it just spill out on the page in magnificent completion?
I think the better I get at it, the more I'm crossing out, because
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's sort of, I guess there's like almost two selves I adopt. There's like the kind of very much fermenting, like I'm like creating this thing and it does sort of spill out and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And then I kind of let it sit for a while, and then I adopt like the more kind of editorial self. And it's very much like how much of this is actually unnecessary for the actual creative goal.
So, so taking you talked about fermenting earlier on. Fermenting is used in beer, but also you're talking about distilling, which is used in spirits, whiskey, let's say. So having fermented it into a form, you then distill it down.
Yeah.
And is that to do with your understanding of the poetic structure, or is that just simply in your head you want it to be as pared back and with enough space as it can have? That's your style.
Yeah, it's a mix of kind of assessing what have I done, and like thinking what structure does it kind of look like I'm doing, and then sort of using that as a guide and trimming like what isn't actually conducive to that, and then at the same time keeping in mind what is like the contemporary state of poetry and what's out there, and am I just replicating something? What can I do to like add and be creating something new and interesting? Yeah.
So you know about, you're kind of an expert on poetry. You're interested in the broader form. You know lots of poets' works. You read other people's poetry. You understand the sort of the grammar of poetry.
Yeah, I think I'm like familiar.
Because you could also just go out on a limb and just go, I'm just going to do my own thing, punk rock, no format, revolt against established poetry, but you like being part of what is a wider form.
I think expert I'd like kind of shy away from as a title, because it's like there are people who are like professors of poetry or people who are more academically involved in it. I've more like spent the time to be kind of aware of like the tools available, the structures available, and be aware of both what contemporary poets are doing and what poets have done for like the last century. I think I focus a lot on modernism.
What has poetry done in the last century? I mean, poetry's been around forever in all languages. It's part of storytelling. Where are we now for people who are listening, people like me who don't take in poetry as part of our everyday life? Where are we with poetry at the moment?
Contemporary stuff I'm like still trying to figure out. I mean, one of the most obvious trends is like kind of giving voice to the voiceless, and like what stories have been either forgotten or have been like stamped out by kind of more dominant like colonial forces. But in general, it's kind of evolved to be lots of different things. Maybe more democratic. I don't know. I think like the main turning point is like in modernism. It's a lot of, there were like 2 world wars. Suddenly everyone is seeing the world in a very different way. So poetic form took a really big turn in that everything became more fragmented and more cerebral and was focusing on the kind of collapse of a lot of traditional comforts and traditional systems. And then as postmodernism came in and like everything becomes kind of even more fragmented, but I think more fragmented still again in a way that is becoming a better reflection of how our lives are sort of actually looking like. And then now I think there's probably just more diversity than there's ever been. There's probably more people getting their poetry published probably than ever in history, really.
So that idea you mentioned about giving a voice to the voiceless is happening because there's a certain type of enabling going on in modern culture that allows everyone to feel that they're. Does it tie into the thing of like my truth is my truth and nobody can take that away from me, kind of like projecting your own experience and saying this is my experience and it's as valid as anybody else's experience? Does that feed into how people see poetry? It's kind of like music, lyrics, kind of poetry is part of our everyday, even if people don't realise it. Every pop song you listen to is kind of poetry, although you might disagree with that.
I'd say it's like lyrical. Music is lyrics. Poetry it's a different, when you like read poetry, you engage with it in a different way. But it's tapping into a similar thing of like the power of like words, essentially. The like my truth stuff is interesting because it's sort of, obviously when someone is reading poetry, when they're finding poetry that's interesting to them, they're thinking about what's interesting to them. So like it's still like a personal, intimate thing. At the same time, with like untold stories suddenly being told, it's like everything still goes through filters. Like only certain things eventually become published. Only certain things are deemed like a valuable contribution to a certain creative space. So
and yet people can still put it out there more easily than ever before, given social media. So everyone, you said, you've got your own little social media space where you put your stuff out. Everyone can do that. And the whole world, in theory, has access using the device in their pocket.
Somewhat, yeah. But then it's like the extent of the reach is always different. I mean, like the stuff that I publish mostly just kind of stays within my friends. But then like the bigger reach you get, there's like, more filters that it goes through. Like if I start sending to publishers.
What are the filters?
Like for example, if you're sending to a publisher, they have specific interests in mind, specific types of poetry that they want to publish, a specific standard that they'll hold to. Standard doesn't necessarily mean it's, good or whatever. It's like standard is...
It's part of a genre.
It's standard is in a sense as genre. It's like... certain like set rules that have been generated in terms of knowledge that has been accumulated over a certain period of time and has become kind of accepted ideas of this is what it looks like to write well and to have a valuable contribution.
For you yourself as a poet, how do you judge your own worth? Like, do you feel you're getting better as a poet? Is it a lifelong project? Do you feel you reach plateaus and then you go up another little mountain, reach another plateau? Where are you at with your poetry?
I think I'm at a point where, at a pretty exciting point where I've not only started to work out my own personal aesthetic system, but I'm also finding it easier to like come up with new creative systems and new ways to kind of like push boundaries in ways that actually are interesting. Like it's very easy to think that you're pushing boundaries and breaking the rules, and really what you're doing is not very interesting at all. But I'm getting to a point where I have a much better sense of where the contemporary world is at in terms of poetry and where my stuff could lie in it. I had like a really cool, like exciting moment where there was a collection I published a year or two ago, and when I did that, it was like not nearly as good as the stuff I'm writing now, but it was I kind of realized, oh, this is the first thing I've published that feels like it is an actual contribution to like the contemporary like creative space, in that it is slightly new, it is slightly interesting.
So it's almost like you recognize you had something to say, you found your voice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, that's something I've heard from musicians. When you speak to musicians, sometimes they say, with hindsight, sometimes it took them many years to get to a point where they felt, actually, this is my feel, this is my groove, this is my music. But they didn't realize that they were searching for years until suddenly they hit this spot, and it's like, this is it. So you've got that confidence, you've got something to say. The boundaries that you were talking about, pushing the boundaries, what kind of boundaries are we talking about? Is it the internal boundaries of your own understanding and your own creativity, or is it perceived boundaries that you see within the poetic world or the world around you?
There's like boundaries in the poetic world, like new styles emerge by people pushing, not just pushing boundaries, but like pushing the right boundaries at the right time, so then it becomes a movement. Like the boundaries that were pushed during the time when modernism emerged worked so well because it was so in tune with the way people were experiencing their lives in that time. So it's that sense of like pushing the right boundary at the right time in the world that you're in. And then it's also like pushing internal boundaries. I mean, like the thing with like finding your own voice, the one danger is you don't want to then limit yourself to your voice, because then eventually you cease to be creatively interesting. Because if you start sticking to what you found to be the golden recipe, it's like eventually that kind of wears out. You need to also be expanding yourself.
Okay, that's interesting. So just finding your voice is not enough, because it limits you. But by the very act of finding it, you've limited yourself. Is that what you're saying?
If you like stick to it too much, you limit yourself. Like there's something satisfying in.
But then that's what you become known for. It's like any creative. It's like an artist who let's say paints pictures all the time, and then people start suddenly buying one kind of thing that the artist is making, and then they have to keep doing that thing to make money, kind of thing. Rather than going further in their creativity.
There is like a kind of, I guess, capitalistic side to it that once people kind of crave predictability if maybe like capital is their measure of success, or if that's something they come to rely on. I just think from a creative side, the way you stay interesting is by continuing to, again, push the right boundaries at the right time. And when you have that aha moment of, I found my voice, it's sort of the sense of like, not I've found the thing that can define me for the rest of my life and will make me enough money predictably, but it's like I found my own little unique thing of, this was the right boundary to push at the right time, or this was the right kind of expression that is working now. But eventually, I think if you continue to be creative and continue to expand, what your voice is will change. Yeah, I don't think the most interesting artists stay saying the exact same message for their whole career. I think to be contributing creatively in an interesting way, you have to continually expand.
Does it put bread and wine on the table? Does it pay in any way, or is poetry something which is unconnected to making a living?
For me, it doesn't pay anything.
So there is another part of your life which deals with that side of life.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
You work in another way to put bread on the table.
Yeah.
The poetry is outside of money making,
Yeah.
which kind of frees it up in a way.
Yeah, I think so. I think also, I mean, this might eventually change, but I sort of found that when I had less time to be creative, it made me like more creative. If I had to be doing other things and more involved in the world, like sometimes I think like, yeah, it would be cool to have that little thing of like, you have a cabin in the woods and all you do is read all day and write all day.
Great.
But then eventually, I don't know, there's something that seems very stagnant about that and seems less free.
And also maybe slightly self-indulgent, because if you just go into the cabin in the woods, there's nothing to bounce off
Yeah.
except the empty walls.
It's good if you've done your fermenting and you've done your research, and now it's like, cool, let's set aside this time where I can like fully focus on it. But if you give too much time to just that period, then yeah, exactly, just things bouncing off the walls.
And in a way, going back to where we started with a cabin in the woods, there'd be a lot of longing.
Yeah, like
Because
yeah, a
you'd
lot
be
of
on your
longing.
own.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
Oh, I wish I was in a bar now. I wish I was in a busy street. Yeah.
yeah.
So can we end with a bit of poetry? Would that be possible? And
Yeah.
I'm thinking, is it possible to read a bit of poetry that's unfinished, like a work in progress? So rather than or do you want?
Oh.
I'm not sure whether that would be more in tune with what we're talking about, or whether a finished version is what we should call. So you've just taken out a book. It's beautiful, really
Yeah.
nice writing.
Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Left-handed as well.
Oh, are you?
And no smudges.
Isn't there something about left-handed and creativity? Aren't creative people quite often left-handed?
Oh, I
I'm
think.
not sure whether that's a truism.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's something that was said at one point, and a lot of people just started also saying it.
Or maybe
I don't
all
know if there's any
or
truth.
maybe all the left-handers believed it and started being creative.
Yeah, well, it's a nice thing to believe that you're special because of something that was beyond your control. I don't know. Yeah.
What are you thinking? What's on the menu?
What's on the menu?
There's a lot of writing. There's a lot of words.
There is. Yeah. Which one should I do? I might do a finished one.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can find. Where is it? Yeah, here we are. This was like a good one that's like very, I felt was quite concentrated. So the overall project is called like Vignettes of Longing, and then this particular one is called Prayer in the Twilight Silence. Empty bed of forgotten lover. We have inherited many empty beds. We have inherited a broken love, in many ways a bad love. I will not make common that which is sacred. I shall not profane. I shall not profane. Lord, keep me. Lord, keep me well in this bed of tears, in this bed in many ways an island, in this bed of uncertain desires. That's it.